I hope you're doing great. I'm loving my life. I'm loving my life. Let's see how you're all doing. Ben, good morning, team. What a hell of a weekend. Freedom and truth will prosper. Indeed, it was. Christine, good morning. Glad you're with us, Christine. Robert, good morning. DCA, we love it. Good morning. 13 shopping days till Christmas. Thomas, don't remind me. Jeez Louise, what's going on? Terrible. I got nothing done. Good morning, John. Good morning. Good morning. Robert, Alex Jones on X. Going to be a great week. It sure is. We'll be talking about it. Morning, bud. Every day, walking with Christ. Good morning, Maxis, and God bless you all. What a show yesterday. Musk, Jones, Vivek, and more. I listened to it. It was great. What a treat. What a treat. Good morning, psychopaths. By the effing dip. We love it. Matt, good morning, team. Of course, good morning, Aqualodge. We love it from Daniel. Good morning, toxic accelerationistas. We love it. I hope, Daniel, you've got power this morning. I've noticed from my Vermont co-op that we got a bit of power outages going on in Vermont today. I'm not there. I didn't get any wintry weather this weekend. A little bit of rain. Morning, champ. Morning, Jigs. Hope you're doing great. Hey, good morning, P-Man. Let's get to it, everyone. We got a sunrise. I didn't get any winter weather, but sunrise tech operating perfectly. And Bitcoin also had a great weekend. It just worked fine, right? As expected. All that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what is new. All right, I got to get my setup a little better here. 1 second. Yeah, pardon the slight lateness this morning, but the stupid Rumble. If anyone can check for Rumble for me, please, because it was just not producing the stream key this morning for me to load the show up. I've been sitting here for 15 minutes. I need a Bitcoin mug, Nick says. Yes, I will get one. I got to get a whole store going here. Okay, let me just see. Well, it says I'm live. Okay, it looks like we're good. Looks like Rumble did work. I was a bit worried. All right, let's get into our Moscow time. What's the fakest news? We had a lot of fake news this weekend, obviously. Let's just start easy, right? Let's start simple. U.S. math scores hit all-time low on international exam. Whoops. This one's also good. So you remember we covered the, I think it was, okay, Rumble is working great, CB says. Excellent. And by the way, Rumble folks, for some reason, I think it's Rumble's fault. Rumble just, I mean, there's problems, right? I love it because of the freedom of speech thing, but technically it's got issues. It's a real pain for me to upload every day or to load it into the software. I use like a distribution software to go on X and YouTube at the same time, but it has a lot of trouble with Rumble. And one of the things I don't get is your comments. So I said 2 weeks ago or something, I would start making a habit of going into the Rumble live comments because I get a ton and I never acknowledge them because they don't come up on my software. I only get YouTube ones. So hopefully I remember. But anyway, we love you guys. You're the priority. We love the Rumble people, right? But you don't have much confidence in YouTube. It's just good software. So that's why we use it. But we don't have confidence in it. All right, so remember the Virginia midterms, and you had that chick who was running, Susanna Gibson, and here's what the New Yorker magazine says, right? So this is really their headline. I'm not going to give you the punchline, but I'm going to re-inject context in this so you understand where the fake news was. So this is what they say. You know, she's a Democrat, obviously. Her online sex life was exposed. She lost her election. Now she's speaking out. Susanna Gibson's campaign was rocked when an opponent exposed her private digital life to the public. She won't be the last. So Brent Scher just, put a bit of sobriety into it. Says, these aren't punchlines. This is just context, right? Her sex life was not exposed. She exposed her sex life to anyone with a credit card, and there was nothing private about it. So this woman had an OnlyFans, and the fake news is trying to tell you that someone infringed on her privacy. It's amazing. We love it. We love it. We love this one too. Also from the Atlantic. The Atlantic. This is an actual headline. Ross Anderson wrote this headline. Imagine this. Okay, I gotta take a second before I read it because I gotta make sure I don't crack up laughing. War in the Congo has kept the planet cooler. The grim ironies of climate change. Okay. Okay, I can do it. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. All right. Now we also get the Rolling Stone magazine, right? So Rolling Stone has a couple here. What do we learn about Rolling Stone, right? We've learned from Mike Benz that, of course, Rolling Stone is 100% fake news and is completely there to run mockingbird operations. Here's what they wrote about Elon Musk this week. There's a couple on him, but we'll start with this one. With a pair of tweets, Elon Musk drove a 9,500% surge in traffic. So it is with a pair of tweets, Elon Musk drove a 9,500% surge in traffic around Pizzagate, breathing destructive life into a dormant conspiracy theory. So you gotta read it with a little bit of enthusiasm, Otherwise, it just comes across as straight up brainwashing. So it's good. You gotta put a bit of stuff into it. All right. So these are the four headlines that have been shared around today about Alex Jones being back on X. Right. We can count on our friends at the Rolling Stone to have produced one. So what did they write? Kool-Aid Man. Elon Musk reinstates Twitter account of conspiracy kingpin Alex Jones. A year ago, the site owner said the InfoWars host lies about the Sandy Hook shooting meant he would stay banned. And then they go on to say it didn't happen on that. New York Times writes, Elon Musk brings conspiracy theorist Alex Jones back to X. Jones was banned from the social media platform in 2018 after posting harassing messages against Oliver Darcy and Brian Stelter. It gets better. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones reinstated on X after Musk poll. That's from Reuters. NPC News, NPR. So there's two. There's NBC, which is also NPC News, but don't confuse it with NPR, which is also NPC News. So there's two NPC News. They just have two different names for NPCs. So Elon Musk restores X account of conspiracy theorist Alex Jones. We love it, right? So all this spreading disinformation and all that stuff. I got one more for you, right? One more for you. In the theme of spreading disinformation, we get Paul Krugman, our favorite economist. He's the best. Paul Krugman, one of the greatest Nobel Prize winners ever, writes the following: the progressive case for Bidenomics. Meanwhile, Joe Biden and Bidenomics and this prestigious Nobel Prize winner had nothing to say about the following. It turns out that Biden is trying to tell the Federal Reserve to not raise interest rates in rare comments. So the president is now getting involved in the is that all the gusto you can muster? So the president is now getting involved in Federal Reserve policy, I guess. Who knows? That's what he says. But again, how happy are we that Joe Biden is the president of the United States of America as Bitcoiners, right? Is there a better person that we could have had right now in this time and place than Joe Biden? I've said many times, as a Bitcoiner, 2016, I was 100% all Trump. 100%. And I would have loved for Trump to have a second turn in 2020, but this is better, right? This is better. Why is it better? Because this is a bonus Moscow time that comes in this context. We've even got people saying things like the following now, right? This was actually written this weekend in the Daily Beast. We need more John Fettermans for Senate. All right. We need more Fettermans. That's what the Daily Beast is saying. And what have I been saying for a long time now as a Bitcoiner? That Trump was ideal in 2016, just the greatest thing that could have happened for Bitcoin and changing reality and all of these things. Joe Biden was amazing for 2020, right? It's just the best to have Joe Biden out there leading the free world, right? But what do we want next as Bitcoiners, right? Trump would be fun, right? I would love to see heads explode. RFK would be a hell of a time. Vivek is just the best, right? All of these people would do. But nothing would compare for Bitcoiners to a John Fetterman presidency. And now we got some circuits. We got some people actually saying it, right? So it's coming. It's coming. Now, we had this weekend as well Prof. Zenonge publishing the following piece, right? We love Prof. Zenonge. He was a speaker at Bitcoin Amsterdam. He is a Quebecer slash New Hampshire guy, so very near me, very similar sort of geographic positioning to me. So I've met him, I've chatted with him, super cool guy. Here's what he says. 4 pillars of civilization under attack. He says, read it here. So go to a site. It's actually good, right? I've recommended his stuff many times. Prof. Zenonge, top of the heap as far as academics go. And what he says are the 4 pillars of civilization are 1, cheap energy, 2, meritocracy, 3, law and order, and 4, free speech. So he says, if these pillars go, the world we know, if these pillars go, the world we know will be gone. In the grand scheme of history, we've only just begun to unravel our civilization. These next few years will be critical. And he's indeed totally correct. But as Bitcoiners, right, and everything that I was saying just now about Fetterman and Biden and Trump and all of these things, really what it's about is replacing how these pillars are made from the fiat system, right? So what we've seen now is Professor Zenonge is entirely correct. Everything is breaking, but it's breaking Bitcoin's way. And Bitcoin actually has a replacement for all 4 of these pillars of civilization. So while the pillars of civilization that hold up the fiat version of the system are collapsing, like really fast, right? That's what we're watching here. That's what's so fun and interesting. But there is a replacement here already, and you can see it happening in real time. But this is actually happening in real time and being replaced in real time this fast. Because as long as Bitcoin wins these 4 battles for civilization, the pillars of civilization, it will be a Bitcoin standard world, right? We just have to win these 4 things and we get what we think will be better for the world and what we've been aspiring to do and what we've been pushing for and what we've been trying to meme into existence, right? So let me just put it into context, right? So the first one, of course, is this energy piece, right? So the cheap energy piece, um, we see already that there's the Japanese, for example, are going to be going with their own warships now into the Middle East because America is not protecting the oil shipments to the Pacific anymore. So the Japanese are going to be doing it. We've seen pirates come back. Now, the whole thing about the petrodollar was that, of course, as Bitcoiners have understood for years, it was predicated on the ubiquitousness and the ability of the American military to be deployed on every continent at all times to protect the flow of oil and to create a one world marketplace for oil, which was the sole exchange mechanism for oil being the US dollar, right? We've said many times that the biggest crime Gaddafi, and he did a lot of bad stuff. I'm not a Muammar Gaddafi fan, right? Nor am I in the Hillary Clinton camp of we came, we saw, we conquered, or whatever the hell she said about him. We do understand that the crime that got him killed was not the raping and not the other stuff that he did or was accused of doing. We don't know exactly what Muammar Gaddafi did. But the actual crime that got him killed was for creating an alternative for oil to the US dollar. That's what some people say anyway, and it sort of checks out with our worldview. We could be wrong. We could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. So the ability to finance new energy systems is really what it comes down to, right? So cheap energy, as Prof. Zenonge said, is a pillar of civilization. Well, the cheap energy systems that we have don't seem to be producing cheap energy much at all anymore, right? America selling its oil reserves because the prices were so high. Demand coming down across the world for energy simply because the prices had reached a number at which people were not even willing to use the energy. Now, when we look at public finances as well, we have to understand that uh, part of the system. This isn't a conspiracy part. This is just, or not even like a premeditated government is out to get you thing, right? What happened was oil was the best and easiest. And we did have a lot of public financing for years. So you had this best and easiest oil thing, and you had public financing which created centralized grids, right? Because these were public infrastructure. Even where I am in Vermont, it's a co-op. Just north of me in Vermont, in Quebec, where I grew up, it is the largest public utility in the world because of the hydroelectric dams. So this is all sort of centrally owned and run and things like that. But the financing was generally from public bodies. Now, as we move into the small modular nuclear reactor era and a decentralized grid era, potentially, we've got to find new financing mechanisms for energy that aren't the state. So to distill everything that I'm saying here is that almost all energy systems that we've used until now have had some massive state involvement, right? Like I said, in Quebec, that was a public utility. Across Europe, it's public utilities. Finland, where they have this new nuclear energy system, that's a public utility. But what I'm saying is there's going to be private financing shortly of energy systems because the public finances simply aren't capable anymore. They're not capable, right? They can't get anything done. So, and they're broke. So, the idea here that private sector will go into energy creation systems is, I think, becoming more and more reality. And if you didn't notice, even just last week, Russia and the United States both signed an agreement to help create policies that will increase the amount of nuclear energy in the world, such that the petrodollar doesn't seem to have any capacity to go forward. Now, it might, right? But when I look at one end, the U.S. military is not at the same capacity that it used to be, and then on the other end, the public finances are not where they used to be. So you can start to imagine a scenario here where private sector gets involved in the energy creation business a lot more. Now, who will that be? I think it'll be Bitcoin miners, simply because Bitcoin mining presents the easiest way to load balance small modular nuclear reactors or any form of nuclear reactor. And it does so along the lines of basically strip mall finance, right? So when you think of a strip mall and how to finance these real estate projects, what you want is an anchor tenant. Well, Bitcoin miners are real anchor tenants when it comes to the finance of energy systems. So I predict you're going to see that at scale soon. So now at one end, right, go back to what Professor St. Onge is saying, cheap energy and the fiat version of that doesn't look like it's possible. That requires military coordination, that requires confidence in these public finance options, which are falling apart all around the world. Could California, one of the richest states in the world, that I don't even think has its own debts, right? I think they're not allowed to run debts or something like that. But nevertheless, I don't think they could just pay for this, right? Maybe they could, but that would be good anyway. And if they can't, Bitcoin does offer these options to create the financing for these things. So while cheap energy is falling apart, as Professor St. Onge, in the fiat civilization, it doesn't look like it's having any trouble in the Bitcoin world. So that's one thing down, right? Now, next, remember, he put meritocracy. The next one he put on his list is meritocracy, right? So meritocracy you can think of as credentialism from college degrees. You know, what happened to the colleges this weekend? Harvard done, UPenn done, MIT done, right? All of these people getting criticized up and down. Not only are the presidents from last week getting criticized, but their replacements already, the people who others think might replace these people who are stepping down, getting fired, or whatever, are seen as just as bad. So we're starting to finally acknowledge that this is systemic, that everything we see in meritocracy is no good. But it gets better, right? Remember what I said about Fetterman and Biden? One of the best things we could do, one of the things that Trump let us do, was he changed the reality of the job of president, right? President was never supposed to be what Obama practiced, the serious, I'm the president, I give the most weighted speeches, I'm the leader of the free world. That was over with Obama. And Trump brought something new in. He brought this TV star thing, and you're an entertainer, and all of that stuff. And then Biden went further with it by admitting that the job was actually totally fake. And again, it's always laughable to think of him as the leader of the free world. Again, for Bitcoiners, I always use the Craig Wright reference, right? That Joe Biden is the Craig Wright of presidents. He's the phoniest president we've ever seen, right? No one, people take Joe Biden seriously as president the way people take Craig Wright seriously as Satoshi. It's a zero. It's a zero, right? It's nothing. So that's what's great. The people who do take Craig Wright seriously as Satoshi are all damaged brain, broken brain, fucked up people that think BSV is the thing. Now, you know, I don't know anything about the tech, but anyone who thinks that Craig Wright is the creator of this stuff has mental issues, right? They have mental problems. So it's the same thing, right? When you look at the people who take Joe Biden seriously, who take him seriously, they've all got mental issues. There isn't one, unless they're a total liar and have some form of advantage to supporting them. They're just fucked up people, right? There's no opinion there. Remember, we're not in the world as Bitcoiners arguing with people who have opinions when they're part of this fiat industrial censorship complex, this hypnotism hallucination complex, right? They have brain damage. They're not opinions, right? Joe Biden is a great president. No, that's not an opinion. That's just brain damage, right? That's all it is. You've listened and consumed too much propaganda, and now you're mentally retarded. That's all there is to it, right? It's not that complicated. So that's the reason why this meritocratic system, it's we're in the best possible position when we've got folks like this porn OnlyFans woman running for politics and John Fetterman with his multiple strokes, right? And John Fetterman's making more and more sense as his brain comes back. Right? He could be president. Wouldn't that be great, right? But again, this meritocracy thing becomes even more important when we start thinking about news and credentialism, right? What we've learned from news and credentialism is that none of these brands are actually a stamp of any system or any verification or any extra editing or research or context. What we've come to understand is that any one of these news brands are actually just complicit in trading their meritocracy for, or their credentialism, excuse me, for influence and power with administration access, right? So when you think of the Oliver Darcys and the Brian Stelters and what we've learned from Mike Benz again, and Mark Dice. So Mark Dice was on the Spaces yesterday with Elon Musk. So let me just even give that context. Yesterday, if everyone saw, it was the best, right? When Alex Jones came back on Twitter, Mario Nawfal hosted a space for him, a Spaces, and then Elon Musk came on the Spaces, and then everyone came. We had Vivek, we had Mark Dice came, and Mark Dice has been talking a lot this week about Mockingbird and book publishing, right? So again, this whole thing of credentialism and meritocracy made sense at one point, right? Wow, that person wrote a book and it was published. It must have been great. Must have passed all kinds of scrutiny and all that stuff. Well, that's not how it works. Right? Mike Benz has told us, and Mark Dice has been running this stuff for a while because, of course, Brian Stelter came out with a book a couple weeks ago. Mark Dice found out how many copies his book sold. It was 4,000. So Mark Dice has been just lighting Brian Stelter on fire about all this because the book didn't sell any copies. Yet he got all kinds of cover fire. He was put on every mainstream media news show. He was given a huge party for the book launch in New York, but none of it resulted in any book sales whatsoever, which outs him for exactly what he is, a Mockingbird asset using book publishing, which is something that Mark Dice has been pushing as one of the main Mockingbird. Whoops.
Heads up, there's smoke in the entryway. The alarm may sound. It's going to be loud.
1 second here, guys. My wife's probably cooking.
Silenced in this room.
Sorry about that. We got a stupid Alexa in this house. She's just retarded. She's the dumbest person I've ever met. Really dumb person. So you know, this ability for the mainstream media to persuade, to use book publishing, as Mark Dice has been telling us, this all came out in the Church Commission in the 1970s, exactly how this worked, book publishing. And now we understand the context of most of these things much better than we ever could before, right? Before any of this, before we got together here in the mornings for the breakup, this stuff was still a matter of opinion and maybe, and I don't know, and what are you seeing? Am I seeing the same thing? What are we looking at here? But just take a look at this, right? Liz Cheney, right? According to the Washington Post, right? She's been giving talking points all week about how Trump is dangerous for democracy, right? And he uses the words of dictators, right? They've been trying this for a couple weeks now, right? And we've been tracking the simpatico type of headlines that are being distributed and being repeated. It's the same language, right? Which looks like it's distribution of talking points more than it does look like organic writers coming up with a conclusion. So now Liz Cheney has a book coming out. Guess what? It's a book, right? Just like Brian Stelter. And what does Liz Cheney's book say, right? No surprise. It's about January 6th attack, and it's called Oath and Honor. Wow, Liz. Wow. So good for her, right? Liz Cheney with a book coming out, and a lot of people talking about it. This is another. She gets 3 articles on the Washington Post. Here's another one. Um, Liz Cheney is considering many different political roles over the next several years. Many different political roles, right? But there's one certainly she's trying for in the next 11 months, defeating her House GOP colleagues and electing a new Democrat majority. So Dick Cheney's dumb daughter is trying to get all these retards elected, which is the best. Who could have asked for something better than this? This is almost best case scenario. Having her running this kind of stuff, now that we understand the transparency of it, couldn't be better, right? She's basically just putting her hand up and saying, "Yeah, I'm an operative. I'm a psychological manipulator." It's the best, right? And we're seeing the patterns more and more obviously. You got Jimmy Wales now, right? Jimmy Wales comes out, the founder of Wikipedia. You know, the guy who begs you for money every day. You go onto stupid Wikipedia. Oh, we have no money. We're so poor. We're the worst. Just give me $5. I need $5 so you can click. Give me the $5, right? So Jimmy Wales comes out and writes the following: I forgot my bank password and lost my entire net worth. No, actually, that didn't happen because banks work and Bitcoin doesn't, right? So now you get a lot of Bitcoiners getting angry. Jimmy Wales, you motherfucker, right? You fucking said this shit. Like we told you about Bitcoin years ago. You're begging for money. Don't take his opinion as real. It's not real. It's like Liz Cheney. It's not a real opinion. You think Jimmy Wales really believes this about Bitcoin? No, no. He believes this about Bitcoin just like he believes that Elon Musk is a right wing uh, Christian nationalist, white supremacist. He doesn't believe that. Even though his pages on Wikipedia say that about Elon Musk, he doesn't actually believe it. Now, I'm not a mind reader. Maybe he does. Maybe Jimmy Wales is so low IQ that he believes that. Maybe, but he doesn't, right? So Jimmy Wales, the founder of Wikipedia, has this absurd opinion, but it's like a Brian Stelter thing. It's a Liz Cheney thing. It's not real. It's just there. He acts in every single way as if he's compromised and has to say things that he doesn't believe. He's a Rob Reiner, right? He's a Rolling Stone magazine. He should write for Rolling Stone magazine. So Jimmy Wales, right? Don't get caught up in the people who will say this. What I see is that this whole thing of meritocracy, and I'm Jimmy Wales, I created Wikipedia. I'm a writer for the Rolling Stone magazine. I'm a writer for the Washington Post. I write books and I get published by Simon and Schuster. I write books and I get published. I'm Liz Cheney. I'm a vice president's daughter. It's all dog shit now, like absolute dog shit, right? It gets better. It gets better. We got the sex lady, right? Again, that's perfect. Perfect. The lady who's complaining about her OnlyFans stopping her political career couldn't be better. It couldn't be better. It's awesome, right? So we got her, and this is taking away the shine off of these people, which is what we want, right? These people were here to be our representatives, not to be lords over us. And that's why this weekend, when we saw Javier Milei installed in Argentina. That's what he's been saying for a long time, right? How can the representatives of the people have more power than the people? They're derivative of the people. They're not superlative of the people. They're derivative. They're under them. They can only have what they've been given by the people. They can't have more. They're not the ones giving shit to the people, right? They don't have more and then the people get less. That's not how it works. You're not voting to give people extra benefits and to be better people than the normal citizens. That's not how the system was set up. You're representatives. You have a composite of the powers of the people. That's it, right? That's it. There's nothing else. Your degrees don't give you anything. You don't get any special benefits. Now, for years we did, but that's over. And we can see it's over. And people like Jimmy Wales have to run attack ads on X about Bitcoin to stop this from happening, right? So all of these folks changing really quick. And I think it's going to go even further, right? You've got Netflix now. I don't know if you guys saw this, and this is just going to feed into the the negative attention to Big Mike and Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. So they produced a movie, and it came out this weekend on Netflix, and it's called "Leave the World Behind," and it's about apocalypse. And it shows 3 stages of apocalypse: civil war, destabilizing a country, all kinds of stuff. A lot of people talking about it, right? Apocalyptic third world war, people saying foreshadowing and this and that, right? Now, on the spaces this weekend with Alex Jones and um, Elon Musk, they started talking about that, right? How is it that the people who are called conspiracy theorists have a pretty pristine record now? Like if it was baseball, they're off the charts. If it's baseball, the conspiracy theorists are batting like 900. They're not even like there's no even way to categorize them. They're overpowered Barry Bonds with cheat codes. They hit every ball, right? Versus the mainstream media who falls for every stupid hoax you've ever imagined. Cernovich put it perfectly. He says, I didn't vote for this. My Democrat friends and family members are fond of saying this whenever I ask them how the economy and cities are doing. The don't blame me for everything that the POTUS does energy was lacking when they harassed me during Trump's 4 years in office. Explain this, they'd scream. Where this was usually a media hoax. Juicy Smollett, Bubba Wallace, the Covington kids, very fine people, Russia, 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 the perfect phone call. It was unrelenting. We have the truth on our side, unlike them. But yes, they voted for this, and I can explain why. The kind of street crime occurring is easy to solve. These crimes are also under federal jurisdiction, as using violence to steal and then sell goods falls squarely under the RICO Act. These street goons could be taken down a lot easier than the mafia, and yet there are no arrests being made. But yes, meanwhile, over 1,000 people have been prosecuted for walking into the Capitol on January 6th. Most of the people arrested walked in an open door. The barriers had all been removed. The Democrat-controlled and Biden regime-operated FBI and DOJ want you to live in terror of violent criminals. If you voted for Biden, that's what you support. Time to take accountability. You voted for it. That's one way of putting it, right? And I think he's right. I think he's right. Now, go back to this idea of hoaxes and who falls for what and how many hoaxes that there are out there, right? Even go back to the Paul Krugman thing, right? Here's what Steve Hunke says, right? In his latest New York Times column, Nobel laureate Paul Krugman does what he often does. He spreads disinformation. He claims that inflation has been a global phenomenon. Wrong. Inflation is always and everywhere local, not global. Where central banks control the money supply, inflation is low and stable. Just look at tiny, well-managed Switzerland, where inflation is 1.4%, and giant China, the largest economy in the world, where inflation is 0.2%. Now, I don't know about all this stuff, right? But the idea here that um, meritocracy and the ability to have any confidence in these people is gone has also had a knock-on effect to law and order, right? So that was the third pillar of Prof. St. Anja's pillars of civilization. And indeed, law and order in America is just an afterthought now, right? It's not even there. And you can see that, right? The ability to gatekeep and suppress and censor people has created a situation where the there isn't even a way to talk about the violence and crime for most normies who have brain damage and NPC. They just think it's some problem with the heart of man and we're falling apart, right? They don't understand that this is a simple thing to solve and that different incentives could actually get us through it. But the law and order thing is coming along in some ways, right? We saw Owen Schroyer also released from jail this weekend, right? They couldn't keep him longer. We had the Douglas Mackey case. That one is so egregious. That was the meme sharing fella. He's out of jail, right? Apparently had to be immediately released last week. So we'll find out what the repercussions are on that one. But again, go back to the free speech angle, right? And indeed, as Kaneko the Great says here, about this meeting this weekend, about everyone getting together, saying that within about Alex Jones and what happened. He goes, Alex Jones was deplatformed for just exposing the moral decay and corruption within the political establishment, corporate media, and Western institutions to an audience of tens of millions. Crucially, Jones was censored because his audience contributed to the election of Donald Trump, the most populist modern president. He was an early casualty of the censorship industrial complex, paving the way for the left to endorse the authoritarian mass censorship of American citizens before COVID-19 and the 2020 election. Within 2 years, social media platforms indiscriminately deplatformed doctors. So I said this the minute he got in trouble in 2018. I told the entire CoinDesk news floor, I said, this actual event, because not all everyone really paid attention or knew Alex Jones, and they really thought he was more entertainer. And I do too. Like, there's a part of him that's entertainment, right? We all understand that. But I said already at the time that this is going to go one of two ways. It's either they get Alex Jones out of here, and then it just creates a situation where they do it again and again and again because it worked, or Alex Jones is able to show that these social media platforms are now publishers, because I argued immediately that by kicking, because remember, no deplatforming had ever happened before him, right? There was no person that was deplatformed like him, and it created the precedent for Trump, right? So 2 years later, they had Trump down and out just like this. And so when I saw it, I said, well, I think he's going to win the litigation around this. I said that about Alex Jones, because if there's a real litigation around this, there's no way he can lose. There's no way. And the results will be that the online platforms, in order to legally kick them off, will have to be publishers, not social media platforms anymore. Now, it never went that way. It never went the way I predicted, because the way I predicted was too legal and logical and assumed a society that still had law and order and a functioning press. We don't have any of those things. I didn't quite understand that in 2018. I was close to understanding it, but I didn't quite get it. We ended up getting the next best thing, which was a $2.5 trillion fine. A $2.5 trillion fine to Alex Jones, which was so absurd that it looked like something was up. And only a cooked up fake indictment and conviction, or whatever civil case that was taken against them, could ever produce a result like that. $2.5 trillion. It's the best. Right? Not even Elon Musk could pay for it. Here's what Kaneko goes on to say, right? This tyrannical creep of mass censorship echoes the historical repression of freedom, liberty, and human rights by fascist and communist regimes. Our world flourishes through genuine conversations and debates among individuals with diverse perspectives. Society prospers when individuals, conditioned by the corporate media to despise one another, recognize that their shared humanity transcends artificial divisions. Thank you, Elon Musk and X Team, for transforming this place into the most important platform in the world. Freedom of speech must be defended at all costs. Indeed. So, oh yeah, by the way, Russia is going to hold elections in Ukraine, but Ukraine is not. So again, censorship, right? Law and order, and meritocracy, right? Censorship, law and order, and meritocracy, three of the four pillars. America can't realize any of them in Ukraine. None. We're going to have no elections. There's an American guy that everyone's talking about has been in jail for doing memes in Ukraine for a while, arrested by the Ukrainians. We found out more details this weekend as well from Elon Musk about the whole fake news about the satellites in Ukraine and what happened with Starlink. Apparently, it was the Ukrainian government that asked him, and he was like, "No, get the fuck out of here! You don't. I owe allegiance to the American government, you guys." And they tried to make a big stink about it. So there you go. So now we have, and Kennedy said something very similar about all this, just about dissent and how division worked in this case and how this stuff was cultivated. He says, funny how COVID era dissent was labeled as right wing. Back in the day, questioning authority, opposing censorship, being hostile to the defense industry and intelligence agencies, and wanting corporate influence out of government was considered left wing. So which am I, right or left? Which are you? Do these labels even make sense anymore? Or are they just another way to keep the people divided while the big banks and corporations and billionaires strip mine our wealth? And what Kennedy said here was echoed in the talk this weekend on the spaces, because that's what it came down to. Alex Jones tried to say, like, are we the anti-establishment? Are we, breakaway, anti-globalist, all this kind of stuff. And in the end, what he got Elon Musk to sort of agree with is that I'm on team human, right? I'm on team human. I'm not on team despair. I'm not on team dystopia. I'm on team human. I just want human flourishing. And what Robert F. Kennedy is saying here is the same thing, right? I just want another way to keep people he doesn't want people to be divided while big banks and corporations steal everything, right? Which is what they were suggesting was happening this weekend on the spaces, which is what we've been suggesting happens all the time here. Now, the most human thing we can do of course, is change the money to keep it from being government corporate owned and to make it our debt to them. Imagine we've created a system where money is literally our debt to the rulers, which is a form of slavery, right? So now the slavery is based on time and it's complicated and you can get out of it if you make enough money and blah, 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 blah. That's all fine, right? Or not even if you make enough money, you can just sort of choose to be away from it, but it's not that simple. So the good news is it looks like indeed the pillars of the fiat civilization, exactly as Professor St. Oge said, are dying. They're finished, right? The cheap energy is done, or at least the financing mechanisms are done. Meritocracy is a joke. I mean, would you honestly? I went to fancy universities in Canada. Now, Laval University is not where I went to law school is not as embarrassing, right? Because they're just not involved in this woke shit. But my English university in Waterloo, Ontario, is a scam shithole, and I would never tell anyone publicly that I graduated from there. Like you guys, sure, but I wouldn't be like, well, I graduated, and it's a fancy university in Canada. It's like a Stanford situation, right? And I wouldn't tell anyone I graduated from there. I wouldn't brag about it, right? Now, mine is nowhere near as bad as Harvard or UPenn. But just think, do you think those people are bragging anymore? Right? You could brag to me if you went to Harvard 30 years ago. I'd be like, wow, that guy must be smart, right? Today, no way, no way. So they're done. These things are done. The meritocracy piece is done. Law and order, we've seen it sacrificed. It's finished, right? It's got to be reconstituted. We have to rethink it. And of course, censorship. There's no freedom of speech. The fiat system is finished, right? You can't even argue about it. You can't think straight. It's just inundated with brainwashers. Nothing makes sense out of it. It's a total and complete failure. So, the good news is we've got all of this activity and action. Now, there's a few other things in the news, right? We see some people confused, right? We were talking about Milei earlier, Javier Milei in Argentina. I think a big part of this, right, as far as changing the conversation around meritocracy, right, calling all of these people shit and stupid or brain damaged, that's the right approach, right? He's not arguing, he's not pretending it's an argument of ideas or ideologies. He's saying, no, half the population has been brainwashed into the point where their brain is useless, and I don't care about their opinions. They're stupid. We have to just move on and build something better because these people are going to drag us down. Now, you get some Bitcoiners who are worried because this weekend he committed to, I guess, the Paris climate change thing, right? And everyone's like, oh, Millet is backstab. He's selling us out. Well, the Paris thing is inconsequential and it looks pretty easy. It's like they didn't really make a high bar for them, right? It wasn't like you got to jump this high and then you do the Paris Accords. I think if you're the case of Argentina and you're a poor, shitty country right now, all you have to do is continue on your path. You'll have trouble even creating those emissions. So I think it's something like that. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't concern me. I did want to read one more thing here. Yeah, as Daniel is saying, orange and green has truly replaced red versus blue. Yeah, that's what's going on. And not only is it replacing red blue, the green part is exactly what Prof. St. Onge says. It's the pillars of that civilization are done. They're not supporting it. It's over. This weekend was, I think, in many ways, confirmation, right? Because look, who's the fight against? Who are we up against? It was a different story when only Trump was out there and it was all kind of confusing and we didn't know what was going on. And, Trump does, it's hard to always defend him. And, things were getting all kind of lost in the cards, but they made Trump into a martyr. They made him into an icon. So that's sort of solved. And now, not only that, you have all the replacements. If they actually, and they talked a lot about killing Trump on the show yesterday and the Alex Jones show with Tucker a couple days ago. I continue to think there's probably no other choice. They mentioned that Trump often has told Roger Stone he's willing to go to the end here and do what he's got to do to get this done. So it looks, what they said, they'll blow up his plane or something like that, right? Maybe. It doesn't look good for Trump, but it looks good for us in the sense. And I never want that to happen to Trump again. My dream for Donald Trump is that he's welcomed in every stadium in America as someone who saved the country, right? Like, I hope anyway. I hope the brainwashing subsides. There's always a space for people who don't like him, right? I don't want to. I don't think it'll ever be 100% of Americans love the guy. I wouldn't think it's natural to even get to that point. So I always leave people a space to not like him. He's a bully, right? I get why there's some people who just because of childhood, whatever, can never deal with one. I'll always leave that space for them. But the difference now is that we've got Vivek, we've got Elon, we've got all these people. You had Andrew Tate this weekend. He came on the thing too, right? Lighting shit on fire. So it looks like the coalition that's been created around changing the fiat world, filled with Bitcoiners, is going to keep making advances. And when we think of the pillars of civilization, just contrast them, right? Contrast the fiat pillars failing, all of them failing. I've listed them all. Prof. St. Onge lists them all. They're all failing. Luckily, Bitcoin creates alternatives to each of these, right? We create alternatives to the meritocracy piece. We create alternatives to cheap energy. We create alternatives to censorship and all of these things. So we've got the new pillars being created, and we get a bit of benefit. Now, one last thing I want to do is read. You guys are going to love this. So Trump wrote a note about the the Republican debate the other day on NBC. And you got to hear what a good writer he is, because it's the funniest thing I've seen in a long time. Here's what he writes, right? So many people are asking what I thought of history's lowest rated presidential debate and how I would rate the players. It's so easy to be a critic, but who on this subject would be better than me? Already. To begin with, I thought Ron DeSanctimonious was terrible with his bobblehead facial movements and his walking on eggs, but that sloppy Chris Christie was worse. He's not fit mentally or physically to be president. Plus, he suffers from TDS or Trump derangement syndrome at levels not seen before. In other words, he is a sick puppy. On top of it all, on top of it all, his poll numbers are just 1% in a class with Ada Hutchinson. He's dead, but so is Ron, whose weird bobbing head and fresh mouth make his high heels look good. He's walking on eggs. Bird brain. That's Nikki Haley. Bird brain looked different and lost, but I gave her second place. Bird brain. Bird brain. Vivek wins because he thinks I'm great. He wins because I'm great. The biggest loser was Megyn Kelly. What the hell happened to her? She has lost whatever she once had, which wasn't very much. Some things never change. Who could write like this? Ooh. Oh, God. Thank you, Trump. Thank you, simulation. Thank you for breaking fiat in a perfect order at the perfect time. We can't get enough of it. It's a great time. There you go. Tommy, happy to be here. Another space drop candidate. Yeah, I mean, Jose, she is absolutely space drop level for sure. The amount of lying and the face, the face. Better, I would. No, I'm not going to get into the types of punishments. We'll do that another time. They're a little too. Team Human crew, yeah, Team Human. So we're winning, guys. That's the good news. All right, team. That's all I got for today. I hope you're doing great. I'll let you know. Oh yeah, go have a look. I published chapters 1 to 9 of Satoshi Wedding Murders last week. Have a look. And chapters 10 to 30 should come out this week. All right. Peace.